Hello Tubesters, it's me Gav and welcome to another one of my videos. Today is another tutorial. We're going to be looking at this little guy, which is a Foundry Miniatures French line infantry, a drummer. We're going to be painting him as the 9th line infantry. He will have the usual blue jacket on. Trousers I'm thinking maybe brown or off like an orangey brown that they'd often wear when on campaign. He will have green fronts, green cuffs, green collar with some little dots around the edges to show show he's a musician. So the only word of caution I'd say is, I've got this from one of those period prints. French drummers are notoriously bad to place in regiments. They the NCOs, the commanding officers, as in most Napoleonic countries, would be in charge of more or less purchasing the uniforms, and so the musicians, sorry if I'm stuttering here, the musicians could be literally anything that the commanding officer desired, really. And obviously if they'd got the money, they'd like to show off against other regiments. So you could have any type of drummer, green, orange, nothing to do with any, like I say, British with the facing colours or anything like that. It's just really dependent on what the CO of that unit decided at the time. So this might be right, it might be wrong. You paid your money, you take your choice, really. So if you'd like to join me down at the bench, I'm going to try and not make this one a super long one. It's not so much even for the painting side of it, it's more just the uploading. If I do 3-4 hour videos, it's getting them uploaded. It stops me using the computer a lot of the times because I have to upload them onto the computer, which takes a while. Then obviously uploading them onto the YouTube as well. It's not to say I'm not going to not be doing some longer ones. It just, at the moment, I want to get some that are around the hour mark or slightly over. It's Gav, so it's going to be slightly over. So if you'd like to join me at the bench, if you've got an interest in French Napoleonic drummers, then please follow along and see what you think at the end. So you take care of yourselves, guys, and I'll catch you soon. Right, guys, thanks for joining me at the bench. These are the colours we're going to be using for his blue jacket. So first of all, scale 75 deep blue, scale 75 navy blue. This is a lovely colour if you can get your hands on it. Canterbury blue for the third, and may or may not have a very watered down Mediterranean blue. Yes, it is extremely bright, but if you put it down, I wouldn't say like glaze consistency, but not far off. It does make a nice highlight, but we'll decide on that when we get closer to the time. A bit closer. Now, I'd run out of those cork bungs that you see me paint on from time to time, so we I might actually clash with getting my fingers all in shot as usual, but then again it wouldn't be one of Gav's videos if we didn't. You can add a bit of black to this base coat if you wanted to. Now, for those people that are a bit worried on doing the piping, there is on the cuff and the collar, there's actually piping moulded on. You could, theoretically, the tails are a bit long really for this, but you could, if you really wanted to, put him as a in the later is it Bardeen Imperial green uniform. I mean, you've got the swallows' nests here. These are swallows' nests, these cup things at the top. Oh, what we call swallows' nests. It's a bit transparent at the moment. That's what you do get with scale 75. It can often be quite a transparent paint. I like using it on the larger figures. On these guys, it can sometimes be a bit of a pain just because you've got to work it over a few times. But for the particular blues, you know, I know I haven't tried the Andrea blue yet. I do intend to get that at some stage. But I really do like this for Napoleonic uniforms, or any country's uniform that requires a blue of this type when it's finished. Again, going as neat as we can. I always hate saying that because you guarantee that as soon as I say that, you see Gav painting over other stuff. I'm just trying to work out what this piece here is. I think it's his other pocket. If not, that'll be something else we've got to paint over. We'll say it's his pocket for now. As I say, I hasten to add, I'm no expert on Napoleonic uniforms. You know, you see me paint a lot. It's just as a commission painter, that's what I get asked to paint. Obviously you pick a lot up as you go along. Although I tend to forget as much as it must be age. I tend to forget as much as no matter how many times I do something. I was doing some AB cavalry, which you'll see in another video hopefully this week as part of the commission, and it wasn't until I'd sent the photographs off to the client that I realised I'd left about 2 different particular colours. Now I painted this unit in 28mm. I still painted it, not the actual main uniform, but bits like the stirrups and things like that, or the leathers that hold the stirrup on. I'm not up on horses' tack, I don't really understand that side of it, but it is a really nicely moulded figure, this. I don't know how old these would be now. I believe the Perrys did a lot of the Foundry stuff. I don't know if this is one of theirs or not. Again, you get guys that get really into the history side of who made what figures and whatever, but there's a fair amount of cross belts as well on this, because it's obviously a drummer and he's got the slings over his back. Yep, I've just gone over a sling there, or a strap. I say it's not a big deal if you do go over straps and things. It's just it for me, if you've got, like I'd prefer, as you know, doing grey undercoats, grey primers I should say, it just means sometimes if you put a dark coat on something that's going to obviously have a lighter coat on top, you just make more work for yourself. So I'm going to go back over that again, and I'll do another coat over that. Right, I'm going on to the first highlight. I've put a second coat of our base coat down, and then just first, obviously I'm doing a one-off figure here, so I use that hair dryer again. Always comes in handy. I used to use the wife's, but she cut an hole. She didn't realise for, well, I wouldn't say for too long, and then she noticed all the mucky paint fingerprints all over her hairdryer, which she wasn't too impressed about. So she went out and got me one of those little travelling ones, which I think I've shown on another video, which, you know, I do think again in your painting armoury it is handy to have. Now that's gone on fairly quick. That was with I was using a Winsor & Newton Zero brush there. This one I'm using is my Army Painter Insane Detail, and this is putting our second highlight on, which we shall start over here, so that one can dry off a bit more. What I'll often do is put the very last highlight on a jacket, or sometimes even the trousers, after I've painted the entire figure. I know that sounds a bit ridiculous. Again, it's just how my method of painting. I just then decide if I'm gonna really need another highlight on top. As I say, guys, I apologise once again for the lighting. All those little channels out there, you just have to bear with people. We do our best, and it costs money, of which I'm not made of. So it really just, you know, it just takes time to get things together to produce better videos. Mine will always be ad hoc. I'm not, as you all know, guys know, I'm a technophobe. I've got no. I can just about use a toaster, never mind a computer. I have got that. I have put an editing program on the computer, which I'm, to be honest with you, really struggling with, and I'm like so many people out there, or I might not be. It might just be me. When things get technical like that and I can't understand them, I just end up giving up on them. So I'm trying to push myself to go back to learning to do that a bit better, or a lot better, because it wasn't really doing us any favours. So that's, I mean, obviously she's got to dry a bit more yet, but that's roughly what we're looking at with our blue jacket for now. There may well be another highlight. We'll see as time progresses. I'm going to actually do because where I've got the paint, I am using a wet palette, so it'll stay there, but where I've actually got my brushes in before I wash them out completely for a new colour, we'll do these drum hoops as well. We'll do these drum hoops and get a colour on those. I'll use the same brush again for that. Again, you can find differences in drums as well. They tended to, on the whole though, to be blue hoops and brass frontage. Drum is going to be slightly awkward to get to, obviously, because it's on his back. Again, you want to try and get in all the nooks and crannies if possible. Sometimes doing it this way, yes, the paint's on the palette, especially if you're not using a wet palette, you know, you can say, well, I want to use this paint up before it dries out, which is good because you're not wasting any. But sometimes you end up over painting things. In this case, we've got his pack to do. Probably a bit too much water on the ferrule there. Yeah, I can see me doing a second application. As I say, these scale for 75s, they're brilliant for glazing and blending. But say doing standard figure painting work for war games, especially historicals, I believe, not always the best for coverage. As we say, you know, if you've got a lot of figures to knock out, a lot of people will want to be putting one coat down and then I'll go on to the next one without having to redo, you know, areas all over again. But in this case, as I say, I don't know, I intend to get, I think I'm going to get the greens from Andrea next, because I was very impressed with the reds. I'd put the Andrea reds over the, especially for war games work anyway, over the scale 75 reds. So it'll be interesting to see how the blues and the greens are. I've got that much paint with the Vallejo's and everything. I'm not overly pushed to get lots of these you know, already pre-done boxes where you've got all your paints in one. I'm going over the rope, the strengthening ropes on here. Just get a bit more coverage on these guys, and then when you see it next, I'll have all the blue colours on. So once you've got that second coat on, I mean, they're fine, you know, it's they're obviously extremely matte as well, which is why a lot of people buy them for. So if you're doing something like a large figure, that, I mean, I personally, when I'm doing the larger figures, I don't varnish them, as they are for display pieces, so there's no matte varnish going on, and the scale 75 really is decent matte coverage, and so is the Andrea. I find the Vallejo tends to have a bit of a shine to it, which is fine for your work on war games figures, because obviously we're going to put a matte varnish over it in the end. But right guys, I took a break from filming, and as I turned the camera off, I'd looked over on my palette and noticed that I'd got some, let me just show you, some US Field Drab. Now this is a fantastic colour for putting a background colour to metallics, if it's, you know, brass, that type of colour. I like to put a base of that down just to give the metallics a background to work on. It's also great for doing the type of brown trousers I'm hoping to do with these. I've used it also where I've got it as a base for the shako. Now I'm saying all this, and we're not going to touch these two items for the moment. We're going to go on to the do the green on the jacket. It was just that I got it in my palette, and I knew I'd be changing my wet palette over, and I didn't want to waste the paint, so that's why it's there. But we'll get back to that soon enough. And we've got some wind getting up here now, and I don't know whether I'm going to have to shut the windows so you're not having to listen to it. But we'll get this green down first. The green is going to be a mixture, well, base coat first of black green. We've got some uniform green, and some olive green. We'll probably do a bit of mixing in amongst those. That's the one thing I'm never hugely a big fan of Vallejo's greens. Let's get this bird's nest on first. I've never been a huge fan of it. They're alright for their like Luftwaffe colours and stuff, which I do use in my Napoleonics, but I've yet to come across in their range a particular paint that I'm for Napoleonics and for, you know, any type of more showy uniform, let's put it that way, that I like. So I will be getting the, as I've said before, the Andrea green set and seeing how that performs. I think that back bit there will colour green, but it's probably supposed to be piping. If you want to hit this hard first time, then put a bit of black in it, and it'll hopefully you won't have to do a second coat. Again, the one trouble I've got is my light is over my. I mean, the camera on this, I use a, as I say, one of these gooseneck stands, a bit like the things that you use on the lights. I think they're about £11. I think I paid for it off eBay. But it is designed for you know, your cameras on your phones. I don't even think they're phones these days, are they? They're more mini computers, but. And it doesn't always hold on to the video camera that I've got particularly great. I'm hoping it never actually drops off, but it just tends to move the end piece around. But it's a good little system. As I say, it gets you right over the top of your what you want to do, whether it's a scale model, figure. As I say, it's just a bit. The actual clamp itself isn't heavy duty enough to support this camera. I keep debating. I keep going on eBay and looking and putting in, you know, YouTube lights. And I'm undecided. You can get these big photographic ones that they have. I'm unsure whether I have to go down that route. I prefer one of these. They're like squares with lots of LED, I take it, bulbs in. And I'm thinking for that more for doing these type of videos. But we shall see. Now some of the piping on here is going to be really teeny tiny, and it will just be little dots. That's the one problem with drummers, unless they can't over emphasize the piping too much, if they're doing it for you to paint along to, because it would take too much surface area of the figure up. Now I've not seen this before it's the first time I've seen this on a figure. Let me just get my other paintbrush. If you can see here, I've never actually seen that before. It's obvious. I'll take it that goes on completely. Normally it's just a little brass strap there. But we'll still paint it. We'll paint it a white colour when we get round to it. Let me get under there. I don't want to put too much dark green on there because it'll be a bugger to clear up. Right, now we're going to hunt through this and see where. I don't think that's a strap there, that's green, I hope. It can be a bit confusing, especially when you're new to Napoleonics, all the cross belts and lapels. And I've painted enough times, I've painted cross belts as lapels and, you know, all that good stuff. Don't think I don't think that's going to be showing any further. Oh, there's a little tad of it down there. It really is. It's just like the Wheats Tiger I painted. It's a lovely little figure. As I say, I think they're more 25mm than 28 from foot to eye. But it's still a lovely little figure. The face is nice. And to be honest with you, once you start painting smaller figures like the 18s and that, when you do something like this, they're not too bad. I don't think it's as skinny. The trousers are slightly, I won't say sloppy, but you can see where they've the trousers aren't particularly, not so much well sculpted in how the movement of the leg in that, but they just seem a bit, the putty hasn't been smoothed out on them. Again, I might be wrong, I don't sculpt, so I could be talking out my bum there. I think we'll keep on the smaller brush for a moment, as we just got this one to do here. I just thought of this one for a difference, really. I haven't painted, well, I've painted lots of Napoleonic green, but on a drummer I haven't painted this type of turnbacks. Right, the camera's deciding to go walkabout on me again. Still going in with the dark green. This is the last bit. I had to stop the camera. No matter how many times you you try and memorise a photograph, and then I knock my tablet off. I don't know why. I've got a laptop in front of me, but I always do this type of thing. It's just easier on the tablet. And every time, if it's not a uniform I've painted before, my memory goes quite quick these days. Right, we're going to put a bit of uniform green into this black green. He says hopefully. The old print, which I believe was from about 1809, it didn't show a hugely bright green. The problem is though, we're looking at a print that was done in watercolours in 1809, and that's what in my own opinion, that's what you've always got to be careful of as well with any, obviously even modern artwork's usually based off, a lot of the time, off older artwork, and it is just swirls around with, you can put something up and the times you get knocked down because it's the wrong colour green, or so I wouldn't let anybody detracting from your work if you put it up somewhere on a Facebook group, or you don't want to put your work up on YouTube because you think people will knock you. Well, yeah, there will be people that knock you, unfortunately, but just rise above it. It's so, if it's things like Napoleonics, it's so difficult to. Well, I've missed that cuff completely. It is so difficult to pinpoint particular colours. Certain units, you know, or countries like the UK, you know, obviously it's slightly easier to trace in a lot of ways. But things like, especially like the French, again, you know, as I say, with the people going off doing their own things. I mean, in the Peninsula, they went through a stage where they were going to have the uniforms white rather than the blue, and some regiments got that in time and saw service in the Peninsula with it, some didn't. You know, and then everybody puts themselves up as an expert on it. So, you know, don't be put off showing your work. You know, I'd always encourage guys and girls, show your work off on YouTube, you know, different groups and that. You just got to be prepared that, you know, somebody's going to be an expert on a subject. So we've got a bit of a mixture there of the uniform green and the black green. We're now going to put just a bit of, I don't think it'll need the hairdryer on it, we've only put a bit on. I don't want this to be too dark. I decided not to go with white trousers and say a black shako cover, purely because I just fancied the changing cut. I thought there's so many. Sometimes you can afford to be a bit, sounds saying artistic, but not so much use artistic license. But there's so much white going to be going on here with the straps, the turnbacks, the ropes on the drums. You know, it's if you've got a chance to do something slightly different, then take it. Again, if you're doing a complete unit, you know, it's up to you whether you want to turn out a complete unit in the same thing. As you know, I tend to mix. I will then put whites in and stuff, but with this drummer particularly, as I say, there's going to be a lot of whites going on, so let's just try and break it up a bit. We're getting any of that on camera, I'm not sure. I've got to try and get, see how it's you always hear this off me, I will get this, well, it's all down to, unfortunately, it's down to the old money aspect, as you hear so many people saying it. But I want to get something I can link up to the computer, because I can see guys doing it. Again, my total lack of aptitude on anything like this, I have no idea how it's done, but then I can just glance over at the computer screen and see if I'm in shot or not, where at the moment I've just got the little viewfinder on the camera turned over, which obviously when you're concentrating painting doesn't always help. Right, I have got a brighter green to go on. I just wanted to see, as I always say, don't panic straight away when that wet paint goes on, because it usually will darken down. So don't put it on if you're new to painting. Don't suddenly put it on and within seconds go, oh my life, you know, it's too bright. Just let it dry for a couple of minutes, and you'll get a better look of, or a better feel for what it's doing. Now this is another, again, if you can keep it in your armoury, olive green. You can get olive grey as well, which is all right, but it is a very, I won't say matte, but it's that type of, it is olive green, grey I should say, where this is a very, very nice colour for putting on top of as a last highlight. I use it a lot on 18mm ABs if I've got to do a green. Don't think we need to be doing that much more with him on that. I'm probably going to mess all this up now, putting blooming piping around. So that's our green on our blue. So let me think. I think we're going to go all the way with the pipe, do the piping on this. Let's get this jacket. In fact, I've got to do the turnbacks yet first, which we're going to do in a... Hang on while Gav decides. What do we do? Warm white or cold white? Again, you can mix these around. Sometimes, if you look at colour pictures of reenactors and look at their vest habit, was it the vest habitat or whatever? I can't even remember the word that goes under people's suits at weddings and whatever. But this bit here anyway. I'm having one of those days today. I can't. Sometimes my mind goes. I do apologise. I think we're going to do that one warm white, and I think we will do. I think we'll do that. I've got to be careful here because I've got all these straps as well. Now I'm going to do these turnbacks. I'm going to do these turnbacks cold white, I think, for a change. So we're going to do a bit of sky grey here. Sorry about the squeaky chair. My as I said, I lost my one dog back in March, and I've got my other one who's enjoying taking his place really underneath my desk, because he's the younger one, and he's pushed me right over on my. Well, the things you put up with your pops, he's pushed me right over on my chair, so I shall have a nice bad back after this. So we're going to put some sky grey. Again, this is another go-to colour for me, and I've gone a bit heavy on the brush there. I should have put some of that paint off. I'm wondering if this would have been better in warm white, but we'll see. I've painted them, but on different figures. I've painted it both ways. But I was thinking of doing the straps for the drum in a warm white, and probably any other straps that he's got, and then do these turnbacks cold white, and the ropes on the drum cold white as well. Again, it just breaks. Again, if you haven't got time, I understand. You know, if you're doing lots of figures and you don't think you've got the time to do all that. I think his cuffs, the lozenges on his cuffs, I'll have to check out in a bit, but I do believe that was a darker colour. I think it might be blue, but I'm going to go around the piping with these now. Now this is the base colour. I'll be going around again with an off-white. Again, it's time consuming, and you know, you've just got to make the decision how far you're going to go with it all. Now I've just seen a picture of this, and it shows the top red. I say sometimes there doesn't appear to me anyway any rhyme or reason to the colours of the musicians at all. Whether it was the company drummers or I've already gone over. See, this is your one problem. Sometimes if you just want to get your paint to go off quickly, that's just got a little bit down on it, then blow on it. But even then, that's not now. That's going to have to not too much light grey on there at the moment, sky grey on there at the moment. Never mind, we'll come back to that. And the one thing I haven't done, this is the one problem when you say things on videos. I do this and I do that. Now I always tell you guys, I always put a base flesh colour down, and I haven't at all, which is most unusual for me. I always prefer putting your base flesh down, just as I've said to you guys before. it's not so much even for the face and the neck really, it's more for the hands. It just gives me an idea where everything's going to be. Over the top there. Now I can't do the ropes. I can't do the ropes on these yet because obviously I haven't done any brass work on them. I don't particularly want to do the brass and then, sorry, the ropes and then try and get metallic paint all in everywhere. We will also now you'll often see these aprons that the drummers wear, which is obviously this piece here. You can depict it in, again, cold white, warm white, whatever you want, but you often see them as well in like just a brown leather, because that was often when they're on campaign. I mean, just to keep a white apron going on campaign, that's a lot of effort. Yeah, I'm going to do that vest. I'm going to do that in a warm white, I think. No, I won't. I'll do it cold. Decisions. You'd think I'd actually come up with a plan before I actually started painting. They normally say no plan survives first contact with the enemy, and that's just the same as as when you're painting. So at the moment I'm just obviously taking out areas that I can do with the same colour. Yeah, we've got cuff piping to do as well. Knock a bit off. And from what I've seen, normally only one edge of the cuff would be piped all the way down, but I do believe this guy had it all the way around. It's not looking great, that, but it should clean up pretty well. I haven't done the inside because I'm not 100% sure what colour it was. Do the same for his mate on the other side. But again, the beauty of these wet palettes are, if you do make a mistake or you venture into another painted area, like I've done on a couple of occasions on this one, you don't have to mix a second lot of paint up. You've already got it on your palette. Sorry for the silence, it's just a human nature thing, you hold your breath. I've gone It's very slightly up on that one as well. That'll have to be tidied up in a bit. I say there's no, you know, I wouldn't go into hysterics for going over things. I mean, obviously the neater you are, it just saves you obviously a lot of time in the long run having to repaint over stuff. But piping's always gives people the heebie-jeebies. It shouldn't do. You know, it's something you'll master fairly quick if you keep going at it. I think that's as I say, we can't do anything with the ropes. Let's go back to that green on that collar because I want to know that I mean, I will go round a figure afterwards, you know, in the last few minutes tidying things up, but if you can tidy up on your way through, that's always best. Right guys, if we take a closer look, I've done the piping, and all I've done there is, as you can see, just some straight or diagonal lines, red and blue. It would have been obviously finer stitching and probably some little, you know, I'll say shapes of some description, but there's only so far we can go at this scale, so without really starting to cry. I was just looking, I'm going to do the trousers I think next. You can see I've added flesh base as well. I thought while I'm talking about it I better do it. I'm going to try and bring these brown trousers up in like an orangey look to them, but I'm just going to experiment first and see if I put some of this orangey is the same obviously flesh, it's the there we go, light brown, gives it that orange look on the flesh, but for the trousers I'm just mixing that light brown into the US Field drab just to bring that down slightly, because if you try and put that orange on, I believe first hit you will end up with like a chalky effect. It won't cover properly, so let's just see how this works. It's going to probably make no difference whatsoever, but yeah, that's actually something that I was looking at. I tried this on a 28mm figure a couple of months ago, and it all went horribly wrong. I must have painted that figure over 3 or 4 times, and in the end I completely changed the colour. As I say, when you're doing this type of figure, obviously it's more, yes, you can be doing it for your display cabinet, and if you are, you could obviously blend and glaze colours in, but I tend to do these tutorials just on, you know, you using the layer effect really. Again, I'm just wicking away some of the paint. Once I've put it on my brush, I just wick some away. What I'm trying to do here is just build this paint up slightly before we go for a bit more of this light brown in it. As I say, if we try and hit it all in one go, right, we're getting there. Seems to be a telltale thing with the Perrys, if this is a Perry sculpt, they often put the seam down the trousers. I believe I painted over a lot of it, so I might have to just reinstall that. We're not going to touch the shako with the same colour because I don't want it looking like it's the same coloured fabric, so the shako is going to be a lot lighter. He says hopefully. Right, let's put a bit more of this in. So this might go horribly wrong. This is where sometimes it's hard to get, I mean, you should write down paint recipes, I never do, or very rarely, and that can lead to no end of trouble because you can never remember. I mean, people will often ask me, especially if it's a few months or a year or two, if they're looking at my old videos, and for the life of me sometimes, if it's a standard set of colours I've used, it's not too bad, but sometimes for the life of me I can't remember what the colour combination. It seems to come to you when you're actually painting the figures, it's not so bad, but when somebody just asks you, even when you've got the time to think about it, this is bringing the colour down quite nice. I'm using the larger brush here just to obviously get more surface area covered, and obviously the smaller brush, it's excellent for its thin bristles, but you can end up painting too thinner lines then if you're not too careful. Now what I planned to do was use, if I haven't brought it, oh I have, is to use this this ochre brown. Again, it's a well-worn bottle because I use it a fair bit. Now earlier on I said, oh, this video is only going to be an hour. It's going to be one of those great big long ones, isn't it? You just know it. Oh well. I'm just wondering if I mix a bit of this ochre brown into our original paint mix just to give it a base to work off. And I think we'll use the same larger brush just for, again it's a 0 I believe. Over there, here we are. Again, we're hitting the high points. If you can, drag your brush away from the shadow area, so you're going from wherever your highest point is, you want to be dragging your brush up to it, so the paint will deposit mainly on that high ridge. Again, maybe not as important doing the layers as we do on these smaller figures, probably more for the larger ones, but if you ever do decide to take up a larger figure occasionally, it'll stand you in good stead. I have got some larger figures, hopefully, well, say figures. If you remember way back, probably about 2 years, a year, I have no idea. I've got an early 1800s French line grenadier with a bear skin, you know, from the Grenadier Company rather than the Old Guard or anything. I was thinking of doing him as a tutorial. I'd like to get a World War II 1 in 35mm figurine, do that as a tutorial. I have got that Celt figure, but I'm undecided what I'm going to do with, well, I've decided what I'm going to do with that. That's going to be on a diorama and all the bits and pieces, and I don't think I'll paint the figure on camera. I think with that one I will do it off camera, just show you the usual videos, but then maybe do the diorama on camera. But the Grenadier I'll do as I think from start to finish. As I say, I have not actually. I've cleaned up the Celtic figure, and he's been primed, whereas the other guy, he's still in the box. So we could go from beginning to end with him, you know, showing. I mean, I know there's loads of videos out there doing resin prep. I often, you know, you see people saying on videos, oh, you know, there's a load of these videos covering this particular subject out there, but you know, I personally, I'll watch 5 different people, 100 different people prepping you know, if they're doing, I don't know, resin prep or painting a figure, whatever, you know, if they're unboxing a model kit, I don't give a monkey's, you know, if it's been done 1,000 times, I'll still watch it. So I've tried to, this is just about where we want to go with the trousers on this. We may put another highlight in, but I think it's one of these where I'll wait till the end and see what he looks like. But I've gone for this light orangey brown. I don't know what you can exactly describe it as, but I see it in a lot of the artwork. I mean, you could just do him in the, if you don't want to faff around with this, just do your dark browns, you know, which was often that peninsula colour type of cloth, or like a grey brown for the Russian type of cloth if you wanted to depict him where he's because the French always lived off the land, really, or a lot of the times, you know, they people saying, you know, living off the land was just like nicking chickens. Well, it was obviously getting into factories and taking all the cloth that they prepared, and or even just uniforms at, you know, enemy stores, and you know, even uniforms that people were wearing still. So there was a huge difference in what people wore in the field. And it probably went for most other nations as well. You know, you wore what you could pick up. Now this is where it's a bit artificially. I'm lightening it up underneath there, where really that's a shadow area. But again, we're talking layer paint and Wargames figures, so you have to be a bit artistic, if that makes sense. Right, so that's our trousers. I don't particularly. I might go slightly higher, but I'm thinking probably not. I'm still debating what to do with this apron yet. I might well do it as a dark brown, like a reddy brown, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Right, the next stage, using our little tiny brush again, which I know people think is lunacy. I'll just, while it gets a chance to dry off, I'll put some of that field drab as the base for our drum to put our brass on top. Although I won't be doing the brass just yet, I think we'll get the backpack sorted as well. Bit of paint off there. If you've got too much paint on, as I've said in other videos, you end up getting like that pear-shaped or teardrop effect. So if you can hear all the ambient noise in the background, unfortunately, as I said on the last video, it is summer in the UK, and I do have to have the window open slightly. I'm only using this teeny tiny brush because just get underneath these ropes, because sometimes what you can find is if you don't dig underneath the the little cast on ropes, you'll sometimes find there's some primer under there that catches the eye. It's not so bad if you do use black primer, but people like myself who use grey, it glints away like a little diamond sometimes. So, and this is the other idea of using a base for putting your metallics on. It'll at least, you know, if you miss a bit with your metallics, you've got the brown underneath to actually hide a bit of it. Right, guys, I've gone round the drum hoops, the whatever they're called, the actual brass fittings on the drum. Anyway, we will leave that guy there for now, and I think I'm going to do the shako. I was going to do the backpack, but we haven't started that yet, so I think I'll do the shako. We've got a base on that, so let's just get that one out of the way. Now, you'll see different shako covers painted. Obviously, oilskin black was a favourite one. There's like a brownie. I don't know what you call it really, but again another like oilskin, a wax oiled effect. I'm going to try some old wood on this, which I'm hoping won't be too stark against our base colour. If not, we'll have to mix a bit of the base colour in with the old wood just to bring it up slightly. But we'll do a test paint first. We'll go back to our 0. And again, what you're doing, rather than to make it, I don't know, I'm trying to find the right words here. I don't know if you can see the little. Let me just get me some fresh paint. Don't paint in one great big line following although the sculptor might have put the crease in the fabric. Don't just go one straight line. Because again, it makes it look like you're, I suppose, rushing in a way. I don't know. If you do small dabs, you know, a small dot and a small, you know, I call my Morse code painting, like it's dashes and dots. It looks, I don't know, it just looks slightly different. Again, well, that's not actually done too bad. So I didn't want a huge jump in transition. I'll let him dry off a bit before we put our next one on, which again, I think I said to you guys before, this is supposed to be medium grey from Vallejo, which obviously it's not. I have no idea what colour it is, but it's a really nice colour, and it'll be a shame when I finally finish the last bit, because I would imagine I'll never get it back. But I think that'll just be about right for this. It always goes well with that old wood. And we will go to our smaller brush now, because I think we'll probably get away with one highlight with this. Well, one highlight, two highlights. And although that's looking bright at the moment, it will dry very slightly. He says hopefully. Doing it again as soon as I start concentrating. I go quiet, and I doubt I'll be putting any twinkly music in the background on this one. Something I'm going to try. This was going to be a speeded up video. I was going to put it on that editor and try and speed it up and put some twinkly music and do a voiceover on it. So I will be getting round to that, but it won't be on this one. So after all that. When I said before about having a shorter video, that's just gone out the window. Get the top of this shako done. I've actually got some black from last night in my palette. I'm hoping it can be used and I can do that peak of his cap at the same time, or shako I should say. Yeah, again, you've got to know when to stop really with well, not know when to stop, but have an idea when you want to stop. Like this shako, I don't want to make it any lighter than that, and I don't want to make it any darker, so yeah, we can use that black, that's good. All hail the wet palette. This is usually where I go. At the times I do these little peaks sticking out and end up putting a black stripe over something you've just painted on the shako, either over the cords or over a cover like this. I mean, obviously the easiest one to go for is just paint the shako, you know, black cover on it. But I just think if you're doing a unit, you know, a regiment that might either all be covered or have a mixture of, you know, covers and uncovered. If you do them all black, it you know, it doesn't look so interesting. We'll put I'm going to give him black drumsticks, so we'll put a highlight on those when we've done the drumsticks and do the boots. In fact, I'll do the boots. Put a base on the boots now. I'm giving him black. What do I? White gaiters tended to be more parade ground. Black tended to be more campaign. So we'll go black, I think. I mean, I'll often do a mixture sometimes, because again, they weren't, although they're gaiters, they were never the toughest of things, and I am quite sure if they needed a pair of gaiters and there wasn't black ones, I'm quite sure they were quite happy to wear white ones. But in this case, we'll give him black ones. Now this is neat. Sometimes I'll normally, well, not sometimes, I'll normally mix a bit of brown or something with the paint, but as I've already got this on the palette, I just wanted to get this on. So, but we'll be changing the colours of those as with some add-ons in a while. I think I'll do the apron next. Or do I do the pack. Now we'll do the apron. And for that, I think I'm going to use a Vallejo. This is the Panzer Aces series from Vallejo, and that's a leather belt. A lot of these, you know, I'm not convinced. You know, they've all got the different names for more or less the same paint sometimes, especially on figures that you're going to be sticking a load of varnish on and things. So I wouldn't get too hung up on if something says, oh, it's leather, you know, must only be used for leather and things like that. You know, use it on whatever you think would look good on that that particular figure. Right. As I say, you obviously you could paint this white, but if you look at a lot of the artworks, they were quite often leather brown for campaign. I mean, this figure's turning in quite a dark figure with the blues, the greens. I might put a couple of high points of pure white on the vest. And again, just use pure white really sparingly. I only use it as an occasional highlight. But again, a leather apron, it just shows again that bit of a difference. Rather than the, you know, always the run-of-the-mill stuff. What I will use this brown for, I don't normally do the hair before I've done the actual face, but I was running through my mind what I was going to hair colour I was going to give him. I seem to be doing a lot of redheads at the moment, so I thought better steer clear of that. Again, this hair will have a different. It hopefully won't be exactly looking like the apron when I've put some colours on it. Again, you could put a black base coat down to make the hair stand out more. But I prefer it just slightly more natural. Right, old creaky chair today. So that's what it looks like so far, guys. Right, we've got the hair base colour. As I say, I've used the same that I've used on the apron. Breaking my own rule of telling you guys again, you know, try not to use the same colour. But as long as you're changing it, then I don't really see too much of a problem. This is quite a match, actually. This is mahogany, by the way, I'm putting on here. need to find another highlight to go on this yet. We'll leave his hair alone now for now. I'll probably be putting a lot lighter colour on that. Now I've got to find a colour that's going to bring us up very slightly. I'm just wondering if this light wood will actually do it. It might do. In fact, let's put I'm going to mix a 50-50 light wood and mahogany. I don't know, that it might end up going a bit too like sandy colour, and it won't be any good for us then. It might just work. Let's get back in focus, Gav. Again, we're going away. See, we're going away from the deepest creases, working up. So you're more or less working up the hill. You don't want to be going down the hill with the paint, and so you're depositing a lighter colour paint into the darkest creases. I'm not a big fan of edge highlighting as well, so I won't be going around the actual edge of this to make it stand out. But what I intend to do, I'm just trying to look if I've got anything on my palette. I should have with some of these lighter colours. I'm just wondering with this old wood if it's gonna, probably not gonna look right here. Let's just see. Trying to put a couple of scratches in. Probably paint's dried on the tip already. Again, you need to take a lot of paint off or you're going to end up with a blob. And instead of doing your edge highlight, you can just do a couple of nicks in places. Especially on these high points. Just trying to find another place to do you don't want to wreck too much of your do one more down here if we can get away with it. So we've put a couple of, you see, put some scratches in there. Again, it might all be lost with varnish, but we've tried. So I'll call that a day on the apron. We're going to be working on this. We're going to be working on this backpack now. Right, guys, I've put a base coat on the backpack, and that is just the spare leather brown with probably about a third of black mixed in with it. I like to go quite dark on the backpack bases, just to get into the nooks and crannies. Obviously they tended to be cowhide, so then I'm gonna try this light brown again that I've used on the flesh, just to see. It might not do it. It might be too light. Yeah, it's too light. You see, it doesn't cover particularly well, so we need a darker colour. I think that's probably going to go to the usual one, which is orange brown, which is what I normally use on the backpacks of most scales, whether it's the 18s or the 28s. So here we go with the orange brown. Let's see if that makes a difference. It should do. Yeah, that's better. You can have these with I'll sometimes do them, or I'll do a mix in a unit with where you've got the white and the, you know, whatever you want to call it, orangey brown fur. I don't on something like this because it gets quite busy. You've already got a load of things going on with the drum and all the white and that, and to try and put a bit of white fur in there as well on the backpack, it tends to get lost in everything. And that's all that needs really. What I will be doing with a lighter colour is they've got tapes around the outside of the backpack. I'm just going to see if I can highlight those up. Probably not very well. But with the dark black brown you've got underneath, it normally makes them stand out very slightly. Again, someone like the guard ones you can do with a white tape round. So that's going to be that. For our, I'm thinking for the greatcoat, sorry I'm trying to reach over and get paint here. We'll use some London grey as a base. And this is one I've had trouble with before because it's French grey, I think this is, and it will give you that that bluey grey look that you'll see on some of the backpacks in the artwork. Not backpacks, greatcoats even. Also the guard having dark blue ones, but as this guy isn't the guard, we're safe to use. So we're putting a London grey base down first. Get into the creases. It doesn't matter about painting over the straps on this one because you need to get into the deep creases where the straps actually are. Right, I think we're going to have to put the hairdryer on this guy. There's too many deep creases there, and there's nothing else I want to go on to before we've done this greatcoat. Because once we've got the greatcoat out of the way, we can get onto the actual straps. Right, we've done the actual base, so now, as I say, to go to dipping into some French grey that I actually haven't put on the palette. Bear with me 2 seconds. Right, we only need a little tiny bit. It's amazing how some of these pots on last year, I prefer these type of bottles than the actual, was it those Citadel Games Workshop ones where you flip the cap open. I mean, if you're going to use them all in fairly short order, it's not too bad. But these bottles, the only problem that you'll get from them is they will, especially in hot conditions, they tend to fly out the bottle sometimes, and you're left with a giant pool of paint which you just cannot use in a month of Sundays. But apart from that, they last really well. I mean, this French grey, I use it sparingly. I've got a spare as well, which is probably years old. I think we're going to have to go on a lighter. I've got a lighter blue grey as well to put on, I think. Yeah, I think we'll have to go slightly lighter with that as well. I'm just debating whether we use, I've got that sky grey, but I think it's going to be a bit too bright. Oh, that's why. Well done, Gav. I I only have a rough order that my paint bottles go in. I have a couple of stands, and then the rest go in a really useful box at the side of me. The racks are, the racks I'm talking about, they're fine, the racks, but I tend to find paints that I don't use very often obviously get coated in about 3 inches of dust. But where I've gone wrong here is I've put the two paints in the opposite from another, so no wonder that was going to a fairly light highlight straight away. So let's get this darker blue-grey in. See if that makes a difference first. That's better, it's giving us more of a bluey effect, and then we'll go back over with that dark grey again. Again, great coats, I'll often mix 2 or 3 colours up in a unit, just to obviously say, sometimes you can't change the difference. You know, jackets, you know, I'm quite sure that on campaign they weren't even wearing the same jackets a lot of the time, you know, if they were just all falling apart. We often see them with trousers, and yes, trousers are probably going to get the most wear and tear, but I'm quite sure that they struggle with jackets sometimes, which is why you see the conscripts in the 100 Days campaign were supposedly, a lot of them were just wearing grey coats because they didn't have the jackets for them. I mean, you run the risk if you make them too individual, they tend to not look like a unit. So you've just got to be a bit circumspect what you do. So I usually throw in a few, just bring a bit of this sky grey on here just to pick out the edges slightly. I will change the grey coats on the backpacks. I might throw in a couple of backpacks with the whites, you know, the white fur in mixed up with the brown fur. Obviously throw a couple of changes of trousers in there. You could throw a patch or 2 on the trousers or on the elbows of the jackets. So you can't really see, but it's going to be our jacket. I think I'm just debating whether I can see. Just about see. I think, is that just about see? I'm just about to see a dirty grey big piece of primer underneath. Hang on a second. Wedge between the drum. That's better. That's a bit of luck. Put that on a photograph and somebody's bound to see that straight away. Now I'm just debating whether you can see the straps. You might just be able to, but it'll only be the brass buckle if you do. And I might leave that brass buckle out, because I think without the rest of it people wouldn't understand what it is. It just looked like I've overspilled some brass paint on it. Right, I'll have a fish around and see what I'm going to decide to do next. Probably the strapping.